Welcome to my first review of 2019, everybody. And today we are going to take a look at the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Glass, starring Bruce Willis, James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, Spencer Tree Clark, Carleen Woodart, Sarah Paulson, and of course, Samuel L. Jackson. And it's the third installment of the secret trilogy of reality superhero movies, with the first unintentional installment being Unbreakable, and the surprise sequel to that movie, Split, both of which were also directed by M. Night Shyamalan. If you guys want to know what I personally think of Shyamalan as a director, I honestly think well, sometimes he's okay and sometimes he's not. He's pretty all over the place. He's made some really good and even great movies in the past, although even in recent years, his movies have had a decline in quality. Although recently, he has been improving a lot with certain movies like The Visit and, of course, Split. So I was hoping that this film could be another win for Shyamalan. And I can faithfully say that, while it's not a great movie, I did find it to be a pretty unique and beautifully made experience that has a lot to love about it, if not for certain issues that very much well are worth mentioning. The acting from the main cast is really great here. Most of them actually did a really good job with their respective roles from the past films. My favorite one, of course, being Sam Jackson himself, returning as Mr. Glass. Because not only was he intimidating, but he even had some great emotional and somewhat even inspiring quotes to give off. He was my favorite performance in this whole movie, as I easily consider this one of my favorite performances by the guy. I also like how it kind of dwells more into the past of these three characters we got to know and learn about in the past movies, like Elijah Price as well as David Dunn. I found both of these two flashback sequences to be pretty dark and intense, Elijah's being the most intense and dramatic. We see these terrible things that happened to these guys long ago, and it makes us feel sorry for them even more as characters. And that was an aspect of the film that I think Shyamalan did pretty well for the most part. I also thought it did a good job at expanding what happened at the end of Split, with Casey's views on Kevin Crumb. I thought it was pretty interesting how she tried to help him control his DID disorder. It makes for some pretty powerful scenes, with the most dramatic one out of all of them happening at the end. It was some really beautiful stuff, and I thought Shyamalan did a great job at that as well. As for issues, I have a few. Like I mentioned earlier, I said most of the cast did a great job. And when I said most, I meant there was an exception. That being Sarah Paulson. I wouldn't necessarily say that she was terrible in this movie, but her performance is, well, it's all over the place. At times, she does give off some decent enthusiasm into her character, Ellie Staple, but there are also some times where she has that Shyamalan direction syndrome where she seems to be showing the exact same expression in some of her scenes and just like saying her lines. Not speaking dialogue, just saying what's on the script for her. Her character as well was also pretty unappealing. Pretty much all she does is preach to these three guys about how they only think they have superhuman abilities and that they're delusional, and it just carries on throughout the film to a point where I got really annoyed by it. Also, the trademark Shyamalan twist that this film has, I didn't find all that impressive. It's surprising, sure, but it wasn't surprising enough to make me go, oh man, that is awesome! Now, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but to put it bluntly, it connects a certain scene from Unbreakable with Split together. And while I don't always hate it when movies try to connect everything together, sometimes it just feels unneeded. Like, that's one of the reasons I hate Jango Fett. He could have just been like his own really cool bounty hunter, but they had the nuts to make him the father of Boba Fett, all for setting him up in the original trilogy. As if he really needs to be connected to Anakin as well as Luke all together. And here, while it wasn't a terrible way of connecting the two, it just didn't really feel needed. Also, I think the ending itself is gonna split fans. Pun not intended. Now, me personally, I thought it started off as pretty dark, deep, intense, and even somewhat tragic. But after that, it just feels like a setup for a new movie, with this other strange twist that occurs during this huge and tragic sequence. And it didn't really add up. And for that, I can understand why it might leave fans wanting something better. And in some way, I am one of those people. But I can still accept it in some ways because I did really love it at first. It was a really dramatic moment for all of these characters that we got to know in the movie. But once we carry on after that, it just starts to feel a bit meaningless. So while Glass wasn't exactly the Avengers Endgame early bird special we were hoping it would be, I still found it to be a beautifully shot, well acted, and even intense movie. I could tell that it's probably going to polarize some people, but personally, I did like it enough to consider it somewhat worth watching for some people. I'm going to give Glass a 7 out of 10. I mean, it's definitely a better Shyamalan sequel than Last Airbender 2. Oh wait, yeah.